welcome to the Way of Conscious Mindfulness with me, Sifu Boggie, and my Saturday segment, Sit Down with Sifu on a Saturday. Quite catchy that, isn't it? So, welcome, and my very special guest today to ask me some interesting questions is Allis Well. Hello, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm always well. All is well.
All is well. I know. I love that little pun. And for those, and this is actually my extra special guest because she's actually my partner. So you know, it's our first sort of like little chatty
public appearance together. One of the first of many, though.
One of the first of many, indeed. So, I mean, you know, this is all about, it's all about sort of the Daoist arts and all energy stuff. So Allis Well, what question have you for me, at least for this moment in time?
Yeah. So I think what is so special about you and Shan Dao is that you teach a more traditional Eastern like Reiki practice, and for Reiki practitioners who work under you. So I think that it isn't particularly well known what the difference between, say, getting your Reiki attunements in America is like, and then versus what it used to be like, what it traditionally is like, what it is like if you belong to a school like Shan Dao or something like that. So I know for myself, I live in America, I live in Massachusetts. And so my Reiki attunement was just like over a weekend. It was a group of people, the Reiki master, like did a little ceremony. We learned some very basic stuff. But then they kind of just sent us off into the world. And it did, it felt like there was maybe something missing, but I wasn't totally sure what. So yeah, I guess just for anybody what would you say like the biggest difference between how it originally was versus how people find Reiki now?
Right. Cool. We've got to cram this in an hour. So that's almost like 5 days worth of information. But anyway, right. So right. I'll try to make it as simple as possible. So there is as much difference between what I called like the Western Reiki, the Reiki that was introduced by Mrs. Takata. And now I always want to emphasize this, is that if it wasn't for Mrs. Takata, I can pretty much guarantee we wouldn't have Reiki in the West, because the Japanese are really selective and secretive. They quite like keeping their stuff to themselves, and you know it takes a long time for stuff to come out. And so there's a big difference between what I call Western Reiki with Mrs. Takata and Eastern Reiki, the actual Reiki originally taught by sensei or master Usawi or Usi, depending how you want to say his name. It's Usawi in Japanese. But there's also a big difference between Reiki and what one of the founding things it comes from, which is Tahiti, and again from Tahiti to the Chinese equivalent, which is Shin Chi Shen, which I've just thrown a whole load of names out there, which totally confused everybody. So I'm going to try to reel it back in, because I always need reeling in, because I have a tendency of throwing you're the wall. I have a tendency of throwing 30 things at the wall and see what sticks. So I put lots of information out there. But so Reiki, so the Usawi Reiki and the Mrs. Takata Reiki, how it was taught is very different. In Japan and in China, energy systems like Reiki are actually taught like a class, not a workshop, an actual class. So you would go every single week, and it would be part of your regular routine that you would go to the class, and you know that you would meet the students, and you would build up a bond with these students. So rather than like workshops, I started off actually on the Eastern version, and then I was encouraged by my Sifus to do the Western version. And yeah, there's a big difference. Is that firstly, the first difference is that Reiki and its Chinese equivalent, Shun Qi Shen, in China, is a weekly class. That's the first big difference. The second big difference is and it's a sort of a play on words to a degree, but attunement, they do more empowerment or reiju, and the West do attunement. So attunement, if you are into computers and you updates, think of the Western Reiki is sort of like a 1 or 2 updates. You get 1 or 2 updates and boom, that's it. That's your lot. In the East, you have weekly empowerments or reiju. So think of, I don't actually have one handy, but think of a bell, and you hit the bell once and that tone rings. But you then hit it again and it builds up on top of that one. You hit it again, the tone builds up on top. You hit it again and it builds up on top. So it's like a dynamo effect. It's getting stronger and stronger and stronger. So within the Japanese or the Chinese system, you got weekly reiju or empowerments that built up the energy. And then there's 2 more. The third difference is in the Japanese, it's called Hatsui-ho, which means energizing enhancer, which in Chinese would be called Qigong. And Qigong is energizing exercise. So it's an exercise that builds up the energy. So you'd have the Reiki, but then you would have an exercise that will build up the Reiki. Think of the Jedi, think of Star Wars, and old Luke Skywalker's does the Force, but then he does all these different tricks and techniques that builds up these different exercises. He had Yoda on his back and running around the forest. It's sort of like that. You have the Hatsui Ho is this energizing exercise that builds up the energy even more. So you don't just do the techniques, the movements, you actually have an exercise that builds up that energy, and then every single week you get another reiju or empowerment or attunement on top of the one you already had. Another difference is actually that you would have what the kotodamas were the sacred sound. So instead of symbols, you actually had the sacred sound. And the sacred sound is a frequency, a tone. Now, the actual symbol, what one of the secret things about the symbols is the symbol actually represented a frequency. It was like a picture version of a frequency. And in actual fact, when you look at a lot of these pictures, they're actually meant to be multidimensional. So they're actually, layers upon layers. So you had it would be a regular class rather than a workshop. It would have weekly reiju or empowerments rather than a couple in that workshop. You just get 1 or 2 attunements. It would have kotodamas instead of symbols, and it would have Hatsui Ho, which is basically an energy exercise instead of Qigong. Have I lost you yet, or are you still catching up just about?
Thank you. No, that makes a lot of sense. So it's basically that rather than there being this individual event, it's something where you also have this community of other practitioners. You have your Sifu. I think, the term Sifu, it's crazy to me that I was a Reiki practitioner. I mean, like newly attuned in the Western style before I met you. But I never heard the word Sifu before. Yeah. So could you tell us a little bit about like what a Sifu is, as opposed to people will say like Reiki master, but they basically mean Sifu?
Well, we have to be a little bit careful here because it's a little bit of mind, because Japanese would be sensei, and sensei does mean more master.
Okay.
Where in Chinese you do have Sifu is more of I always say it's a guide, it's a muse, somebody who points you along the way. And you know, so a Sifu is sort of more like, hopefully, a good parent. You know, is that they want you to be the best you can be and be better than them. A sensei has this more, I am the best, and you have to beat me in a duel of death to you know, almost, you know, it's almost like a pyramid thing. A sensei or master, there is far more of this almost like hierarchy, this military. But the biggest thing I wanted to say with the Reiki and the it's four founders or forefathers, like Tahiti, which we could talk about as well, is that it was almost like being a magician. You know, it's almost like being a shaman. You know, it builds up. You don't just say, "Oh, do a 2-day weekend and that's it." You're Reiki level 1. You're Reiki level 2. Their Reiki level 1 could take 10 years to perfect. But their Reiki level 1 would be that you should be able to scan tumors. That's how like powerful it's supposed to be. And also the interesting thing in the Usui system, the Usui Reiki, well, there's two other things. One was it actually used meridians, not chakras. Now, within the ancient knowledge, meridians, chakras, auras, Merkaba, Torah field, and dantians, they're actually layers of a cake, like an energetic cake. I used to be a baker, so I talk about food a lot. Layers of a cake, or like an energy body. So Usui used the meridians, which were actually the more common thing in Japan. Mrs. Takata later brought in the chakras. So there's a little bit of a different... They're actually all part of the same system, not separate. They're actually all part of the same system, but not everybody knows this. So they would actually use only 5 hand positions that would, rather than, you know, the big great masses of, 20, 25 or more hand positions, depending which Reiki style you learn now. It was only actually 5 hand positions, and then you scanned the body and just went with... Sorry?
I was just going to say, that's really interesting with the hand positions, because with Western Reiki, like the way that I learned it, it's just like laying of the hands style, which I actually really like, and I'm probably going to consistently still use that and still do that. And I'm really grateful. Obviously, I live in the West, so like I'm never like looking down on it or anything, but like defeats the whole purpose. I'm super grateful that people have this. But there's just like more to it too, and you can have more. So it is interesting though that we're not, in the West, I don't even know what that is. So it was just around the head, right? Like that the Reiki was just head movements.
So there are major meridians that run through the head. And basically, because obviously this is audio, so it's the side of the temples, it's the eyebrow line is the number 2, is one hand on the front of the head, one hand on the back of the head is number 3, 2 hands on the back of the head is number 4, and then one hand above the head and the other hand above that is number 5. So these were the 5 main positions. Now there was... Sensei Usui was actually part of what's called the Gakkai, and the Gakkai is like the Japanese Masons. So this information was a little bit, was secret to them and kept in them. Now, what a lot of people didn't realize is that there's a energy system called Tahiti, which is said to be between 5,000 and 10,000 years old, and he took a good portion of Reiki from that Tahiti. He also used Shinto and Tendai, which are different energy systems, and he also used little bits from Shun Chi Shen, which is the Chinese version and Reiki. But there's obviously just like there's lots of different Reikis in Shunchi Shen, there's lots of different Shunchi Shens as well. So what Usawi actually did, he took a number of different things and put them together. But for the first 20 years, it was mainly known as Usawi Tahiti, which means hands healing or hands on. And it wasn't until he reached a form of enlightenment that it actually became Reiki. So Reiki, the word Reiki wasn't used for over 20 years. So the first 20 years that he built up from 1900s to 1920, roughly, it was known more of a name similar to Usawi Tahiti, and the name Reiki wasn't used till later. Now, obviously, Mr. Takata didn't see him until much later after that. So by then, the word Reiki was established, but it was still something that was very much in the Gakkai, these Japanese masons. So, and this is why I said if it wasn't for Mrs. Takata, we probably wouldn't have Reiki as we know it today, because that version has stayed very. Now there are a few people that have brought it over. My Sifus are actually half Chinese, half Japanese, and they had connections, so they learned it. There's a few other people. There's actually a few books you can find of that actual system with the different. The different techniques in, or the additional techniques, and it is a lot different system. I mean, like I said, the Usawi Reiki, or the Eastern Reiki to the Japanese Reiki, there's a big gap between that. There's also a big gap between Tahiti and Usawi Reiki, and there's a big gap between those two and Shunchi Shen. They have lots of similarities with the energy as such, but then there's lots of different techniques, and the energy it's a little bit, it's a little bit like music. There's so many genres of music, so many styles of music. It's all music, but there's different ways to listen to it, and different styles to appreciate. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, that's great. I do think it's really interesting that it's well, I'll say that I really, what I appreciate about the Western style is that I think that it is so approachable for people, and it shows anyone can get involved. It does just take the most amazing thing about any energy work is it really just takes a couple of seconds, to actually get attuned, or if you are listening to somebody, or if you're around somebody doing some sort of work like that, you can really feel it, and that changes your whole freaking life, and that you are able to, that these systems, it's not that the Western attunement system is not real or is invalid or illegitimate in any way. It's just that it's so approachable, so that I think it doesn't freak out Westerners who are what, I have to go every week and do exercises, and I am more than my physical body, and what is astral projection, and what is it? Just opens so many, and it just opens this huge can of worms that sometimes people are man, I just want to feel better, and I just want to they understand laying of the hands style stuff. Great. That's, if that's a part of it that I think has been really helpful for me. Reiki's absolutely healed so many things, and but I'm excited for people to discover more of it as well, this other parts of it.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're very much spot on there. There is this interesting thing of I do another thing. I do Qigong as well. I do many different things, and in Qigong is we have a thing as a teacher, is that you could be doing that exercise wrong, but if it feels good for you, it's still good. So even if you're doing it slightly wrong, I'd say, but and you go, oh my God, it feels amazing. It's you wait until you wait until you get everything right. So, and it's the same with Reiki, is that the Reiki in the West still works and it's still good. But then when you add other things and you learn it in a different way, there is a preference thing though, because some people, it would be, some people do learn the other Reiki, and it's just too different. It's just too, it's a bit like, adding aniseed to chocolate. They might just, I just can't handle it. It's too much. And some people may love it, So it's the whole idea of, or adding beef to chocolate. It's the whole idea of something that for a lot of people could be totally opposite. So, and that was the thing. This is why Mrs. Takata did what she did. She did adapt it, and it was not just her though. It was her teacher, one of her teachers, Dr. Hayashi. He was a Western medical doctor. So he was the one who added the 20 or so hand positions, because to him that made more sense, because he couldn't understand this scanning. To him, that even for him, he was Japanese, but he was Western trained, and this idea of intuitively scanning didn't make sense to him. And that's the whole thing. Some things won't make sense to people. Some people focus on the chakras, but in the ancient knowledge, focusing on chakras is like saying, I'm just going to focus on healing your nose. I'm not touching anything else. I'm just healing your nose, because that's all you know. That's all you know, your nose. Sorry, there's a rubbish joke. But the whole idea was, is that there are many different layers, but whatever works for you, at least works for you at that time, and then later on you can add more to it. So, the whole idea with the Western Reiki, is it's a great starter. It's a great beginning place, but there is more. There is more to learn. And my teachers very much believed everything you learn, everything you know, enhances everything you do. So where some people have said, "Oh, Boggie, you know so much, almost, too much." It's like you can never know too much, because the more you know, the more knowledge increases your wisdom, increases your consciousness, increases your understanding, and if you see a limit, you'll get blocked off. But if you allow yourself to expand and grow, there is no limit. There is no limit to how much you can grow. But as any good Daoist should say, hey, what do I know?
Yeah. I do feel like it's so good to have like the full range of options too, that it's that there's probably going to be, even now, well, obviously there are so many new Reiki practitioners and stuff, and I've even had conversations with them when they've been like, I feel like some things, this is before I knew kind of the difference, they were like, yeah, I feel like something's missing, like not realizing that Qigong or like energizing exercises or this kind of community-based aspect of it was a part of it. I think once people are aware of it, I personally still really like, hey, like a jump start, like a weekend or a class, or like a 6-hour, 8-hour class or something, where like you do get attunements and you do kind of get a little bit of a history lesson, and I loved that. I thought that was really great. So combining the things that are what people are comfortable with. I think also in the West, we have a way of schooling where it's like, okay, this is the information. It is either correct, yes or no. And the intuition is something that we're getting to know again. Most people do not trust their intuition. Most people don't think they can heal themselves. Most people just are like Reiki, like the attunements, like that whole thing was like crazy enough. So I'm excited though to see what comes when there is this joining of like, yeah, those attunements, but then, and also I'll see you again next week if you want, and we can just do Qigong, like to get that kind of stuff. So I do think like the future of energy work is so exciting, and to be a part of, and certainly to get to learn kind of in real time, seeing how this plays out.
Well, there's two things, if I may add, is like one of them is it is the wonderful thing of quantum physics and epigenetics, is that these is the science that's actually showing the evidence of the ancient knowledge. because the ancient ones would talk about, is that, believe it, what you believe is true. You can, affect your physical body, and epigenetics actually proves this as a scientific fact. Quantum physics actually proves that the observer affects the experiment, and it talks about the universe actually being almost like a hologram, or probably being a hologram, being energy. And the ancient ones talked that everything is energy, everything is conscious energy. So there's this interesting thing for me, and part of the way of conscious mindfulness was there's always been this balance between spirituality and science, that one is actually proving the other. And where people would say, oh, I don't believe in that, it's it can't be proved. Well, actually, it's science. There is actually more and more science building up, like I say, through epigenetics, Google that, from quantum physics, and the whole understanding of quantum physics, that the observer is literally affecting the reality, and your reality, your experiment is you, so you can literally affect your body. And then the other thing I wanted to sort of add was that what again, just as you're getting used to this whole idea of this Eastern Reiki being different to the Reiki you first taught, that's not even the original one. Tahiti Hands Healing is a really super simple system. It's very, very simple. It's the basis to what Usui created, the Reiki he created. It's one of the bases. And it's 3 simple hand positions, and then or 3 hands, like you sort of breathe or meditate, because meditation simply means focus on one thing, forget everything else. So you meditate with your hands in 3 positions on your body, and then afterwards you then do those 5 hand positions to circulate the energy through you. So you do the Hatsure Ho, and then you can actually self-raise you, or self-empower, or be empowered by a sensei, and there's those hand positions. And I've taught Reiki masters, Western and Eastern Reiki masters, the Tahiti, and they go, they say it's so simple. You think, but when you start doing it, the domino effect and the dynamo effect, it builds up. Every time you do it, it builds up and gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And that's partly the simplicity of the system itself. But it's also the Hatsure Ho, the Qigong, that's what it does. Every time you practice it, it gives you a bit more energy. Every time you practice it gives you a bit more energy. And that builds up over time. And there's an old Eastern saying about, it's like rowing upstream. Every time you row, you go further. But if you stop rowing, you don't stay still, you start to go backwards because you use that energy. So the daily practice builds up that energy. But if you don't practice, through daily life, you'll use some of that energy up. Like driving a car, you don't fill up your tank, you'll run out of fuel. So it's the same sort of thing. So the filling up the tank is this Hatsure Ho in the Japanese styles, and Qigong in the Chinese styles. And breathe.
Yeah, I wish that the one thing I would love to see is people using the terms more, because Reiki is so specific, and I think what people mean is energy work, and because it is so varied and there is so much variation in it. I mean, if you're talking about healing at all, people know that there are different types of doctors that have different specialties, but for some reason they haven't completely understood the concept that there's all these different styles of energy work, and that further, the most important style of energy work is the one that you create within yourself throughout as a practitioner. So it winds up becoming like this kind of amalgamation of like, yes, these various schools of thought, but it's really just how then you feel comfortable treating people and also with your own personal practice. Because again, this is another thing, like I was taught this by my Reiki master. I loved this, that she was like, yeah, you never have to do this on anyone else. You can this is just for you. Like your health comes first. It's the most important for you. So whatever your own personal practice is, that's the one. Just do that. There's more out there for you. There's all these various things. And it's also, I really love that there's this like a cultural history to it as well. There's so much more to it that is enjoyable if you want. If you're like, hey, I'm just happy doing my own thing, then that's fine too. And then that you'll find energy healers who have never even touched any of this stuff, and they are quite effective. Like they've got their own thing going on, and that's its own thing too. So but I just love that people are starting to talk about it a little bit more. And I would love to see people who are like, yeah, I'm actually not, I don't do Reiki. I'm a Tahiti practitioner. Like I would love to meet someone who just is, I mean, yeah, certainly here in the West, people like I haven't met anybody like that. So that would be really cool, because that sounds like a really interesting system. And it's really just about whatever system makes sense to your brain, just the way that any of these, it's like self-teaching too. In class in school, sometimes your teacher isn't going to teach you in the way that you need to. So you're like, well, when I go home and study, I have to teach it to myself in this other way. In your own self-research, you might realize, actually, I like this totally other teacher. I'm going to transfer schools. I'm going to transfer my major or whatever. It's the same. It's all of these same concepts, but because it's energy work, I think it becomes more abstract. So yeah.
Well, there's the two things I want to quickly bring up. Is like there's one. So the Japanese way does like that a little. The more military thing of, oh, you know, you're in this style, you do this style. The Chinese, the Sifu, is a Sifu wants you to go and learn from other people. Has no problem with you learning from other people. And so the Sifu, or the Daoist, the Dao means the way, the path, the balance. The Daoist concept is do whatever you're doing right now. And then when it's no longer resonating, do something else. And when that's no longer resonating, you do something else. And there is that's not bad or good. It just is. It's a good, it is what it is. The other thing in Reiki was that it was never about other people. It was only ever about you. Is that traditionally in both, even in the Daoist practices or the Chinese practices and the Japanese with Zen, and Zen is like focus and it's this very, so, like very exact. It's almost like a sword, slicing through. It's a very exact way. Where the Dao is more like a flowing river, and it adapts and it goes and twists and turns. But there's this very important thing, and it's that the first thing you do is you. You focus on you, you heal you, then when you're overflowing, then you help others. And that's both in the Japanese style and the Chinese style. That Reiki was never about other people. It was actually about personal development. It was actually about you. And once you were overflowing, once you had excess, it's like, oh, what do I do with this excess? I help other people. But, is the excess is very important. And it's a different mindset to say 20 years ago. If I was to say that, people say, oh, you're being selfish. And it's like, no, healing you is the most important thing. It's like, as somebody who helps the world, if they don't look, or, a mum, if a mum's helping everybody else but not looking after herself, then she gets sick. Who's going to look after her, and then who's going to look after everybody? So it's this idea of you focus on you first. And then from focusing on you, you have an overflow and excess to help others. And that's the Eastern philosophy of that's where you come from. You come from an excess. You don't come from limited beliefs or limited resources. There's actually an excess. There's an overflow. There's unlimited energy. And very much within Reiki and the Chinese version, Shun Qi Shen, or even in Daoism, they say you tune into the Dao. It's like plugging. It's like putting your electrical socket into the wall and having unlimited energy flowing through, and it comes through you and out of you into that person. So it's never just, it's not coming from you. That's where people burn out. That's where you get a lot of practitioners who actually burn out because they're actually using their own energy and not actually using the overflow. One more thing, and then I'll and but I'm notoriously known. I've done this thing, many spiritual camps where I've done 18 hours of massage and 18 hours of energy work, and people go, Boggie, how can you do that? And it's like, well, if you're doing it right, it's easy. If you're doing it wrong, it's not easy. But the whole idea is that, so the energy's coming through me, but I'm also doing Qigong. So I was doing like 15-minute, half an hour, or an hour sessions. Over that 18 hours, and I've done quite a few times. That's my record, but I've done that quite a few times. And the whole idea is that you're doing the exercise, these Qigongs or the Hatsui Hos, to keep that energy flowing. And also, it's not just, and this is the difference again with the Eastern to Western. The Eastern style, it's your posture that's really important. How you're posturing with that person, how your legs are, your hips, actually if you're hunched over that person, that's like a really bent hose pipe. A lot of the pressure is going to be lost. But when you're positioned in the correct way, when your posture's good, the energy will be good and it will flow through that person easily. So there's actually a big thing on posture. There's a lot of, both in the Japanese and Chinese versions, there's with the Hatsui Ho or the Qigongs, there's lots of posture correcting. Because if your posture is wrong and the hand positions, the certain hand techniques and whatnot, so there's a lot more to it than just hands on. There's a lot more to it, but it can be as simple as complicated as you want. That's the whole point. For me. And as I said right at the beginning, if you do a very bad, even if you just literally rub your hands together, breathe in, breathe out, open, expand your hands. If your energy's right, you'll feel tingling, you'll feel something in your hands, and then just put that on your cat, your dog, your hamster, your banana. You can energize. That is Reiki. That is it. You don't have to be attuned, empowered, whatever word you want to use, into Reiki to use Reiki. Reiki is universal energy. When we say, "Oh, I'm thinking of you. I send you my love," my thoughts are with you, you're sending person energy. When you think of them, or if you've ever had to, you thought somebody and then the phone rings and it's them, that's a form of energy. That's a form of transmission. We talk about, how does remote healing work, or how do you sending healing? We send thoughts and energy all the time. When you look into quantum physics, there's a thing called the field. And the field within quantum physics is that everything in the universe is interconnected. Every single atom, every single person, there is a vibration that connects everything. And it's called within quantum physics the field. And that is how we send energy, and that is how we connect, because everything's all interconnected. Or there's a lot of scientists now that actually believe that the universe is a simulation or hologram. Well, if it's a hologram or simulation, we're all energy. We're all interconnected by this energy. So how do you send energy? Simple. Do it. Don't think it. Don't make it complicated. Just do it. Don't, as older Yoda would say, there is no try. There is only do. And so just do it.
Yeah, that's like with that's like with tarot cards and stuff. It's something that I feel like what's so cool about many things cool about our dynamic, but what I love is that so in April, oh my gosh, it is April. So I guess like a year ago was when I really started my spiritual journey in earnest, and I had my Reiki attunements and kind of started my journey as a healer myself. And then in July of last year was when I had like my great, the first of the awakenings that we all have throughout our life. It keeps building upon itself. But so like actually learning about the different aspects of things and being able to compare the different, because you've known this your whole life. I mean, you were raised in this. You were like 11 when you started, when like in Shandao, you were their protege. So whereas I'm 30, I'll be 31. I don't even know when we're going to release this podcast. So I'll be 31 April 16th. And it's all new for me. So yeah, something. Oh yeah. So what I was going to say though is about like with tarot cards reading. So I do tarot readings, and what I'm constantly amazed of is how real it is. Like someone will have a reading from me and they're far away. I just, right now, the way that I do them is just through my Etsy. So someone will just literally ask me a question. I don't know this person. I just ask them, I just ask my cards. I only do a 3-card reading, and it's like I know everything about this person. I can just tap immediately and I know exactly how they feel about it, how the other people feel about it. I can kind of even see these images of like how they would interact with each other. It's so real. I can't even believe, I mean, it, most people having a spiritual awakening, the reason everyone seems so crazy is not because it's because it's like, what? This is like, it's because like my brain wants to think, oh, I need to be physically in front of this person and have them tell me their whole story. But I'm like, it's really real. Like I can, like, there is no distance between us because I'm just there with them. And they'll always say like, I I keep getting these really lovely reviews, which I'm so thankful for, of people being like, that was exactly what I needed to hear. I can't believe you knew that. Like, and I'm so thankful that I'm able to do that for people. And that's really what also doing energy work. It's the same thing for me reading cards, because like you said, we haven't even I don't even know if I want to touch upon this because it's so in depth that is like massage. Massage is a huge part of energy healing, which I like didn't even know at all. And you were saying that you read a person's body, you read their illness through their massage, or it's not their illness, just like them, like just their energy itself. So, oh, and then sorry. One more thing was also, I just made a note to myself about this. I love that there is no like like no risk of burnout. I have doing qigong consistently and that sort of thing. But it also really does take the pressure off of me. I never have to worry about somebody like having to come to me all the time for any kind of energy healing, because I'm like, my dude, guess what? I'm going to teach you how to do this yourself. Like you can, there is power in numbers, and like particularly if you yourself have fallen ill, it's to go to a practitioner is great, or to go to your doctor is great, but the whole point is to I'm so thankful that I have now a school that I can just send people to and be like, yeah, it's actually just qigong, like, and you can be a practitioner too, and you're attuned to universal energy. You just need to remember that you are universal energy. So, it takes so much of the pressure off of the practitioner themselves when they are involved with the Eastern style, because nobody becomes like codependent on you or anything. It's all about teaching everyone how to take care of themselves.
That's very much, there's two things there, but that's very much the Daoist way. Especially they believe in balance, but personal balance. So personal balance, like there's so many different styles of Daoist. The Barefoot Doctors, the DragonDog Shaman, there's Cloud Whisperers, and the Cloud Whisperers. Well, all of them. Within quantum physics, that field where we talk about the field, that's the evidence of that everything's interconnected. And that goes back that the field was actually discovered in the 70s, but it's how, and this is why I love science, because like science will go, I don't, it's faith. You have to believe in it for it to work. And it's like, well, yeah, that's true, but it's going to work anyway because it's all interconnected. Everything's interconnected and will affect, sooner or later. But there is this big important thing about, especially for the Daoists, is that yes, they can help you right now, but they want to teach you the techniques to help yourself. Yeah. And that was a notorious thing, especially for all of them, but especially the Barefoot Doctors, is that they would not just they would not just massage you, but they'd give you techniques to self-massage. They'd give you reflexology, which reflexology, comes from the East. It's the part that represents the whole, that one part of your body, you can massage one part of your body, you could diagnose all the injuries in your body and then work on them at the same time. And that's through like reflexology, whether that's hand or feet. And then there's acupressure techniques, there's massage techniques, but then the Barefoot Doctor would tell you food, give you food recipes. They would also then teach you qigongs, energizing exercises. So there's all these different techniques, and the family system, the Shun Dao system, they very much believed all when, you know, if you have 15 different ways to fix a headache, you use those 15 different ways, and, you know, there's nowhere for that headache to go apart from out. You know, is that you're using all these different techniques and it builds up. Now, some people believe in contradictions, or you know, that, oh, you can't use this with this because it will neutralize. But I found, you know, when some people say you can't use reflexology with acupressure, I have, and it works, or you can't do massage and qigong. I have, and it works. You know, I think sometimes we've created barriers that don't need to be there. That some people want to say, oh yeah, it's my stuff that worked, not your stuff, and it's like, no, it all works. You know, but you use what works for that person, because if one technique doesn't work, do something else. And the thing with, I just wanted to very quickly say, the thing with qigong, the energizing. Qigong, the energizing exercise, is that in the West we think Qigong is just exercise, but Qigong actually, you actually have Reiki or Shun Qi Shen to go with the Qigong. If people who know me, I like saying Qigongs are like an app. You know, you've got a bad back, you've got a headache, I've got Qigong for that. But the Reiki or the Shun Qi Shen is the update for the app. So you have Reiki, you have Shun Qi Shen, or Shun Qi Shen, you have Qigong, and you have Qigong for the Shun Qi Shen, or with Reiki you have Hat Rei Ho, and you have Hat Rei Ho for the Reiki. They're both intertwined. They're two sides of the same coin. And then for me, or a Barefoot Doctor, then the same is with massage, the same is with food, the same is with sound. So as a Shin Dao practitioner, I will do massage, I will teach you some Qigong, I will do some sound healing on you. I may, you know, give you, because food is medicine, not just herbs, food is medicine. So I may say, oh, eat this, and this, or have this. And some of it's very practical, you know, and some of it may be a little bit more mystical. But it's all interconnected. There is no one thing that does all. It's finding what best works for that person, because we're all different. So it's finding the combination of techniques that works for that individual, teaching that person those techniques so they can eventually do it themselves. You don't have to rely on me. And that's the point.
Yeah, I love that. I love it. You've convinced me. Sounds great. Sign me up. Good.
Cool. Okay. I actually don't know how long we've been going, to be honest.
I don't know, but it feels good. Feels like sometimes I'll be doing a reading and then Spirit's just like, all right, that was it. That was my message. Hope you liked it. Go live your life now.
Be gone with you.
Yeah, because like not everything. Yeah, so maybe this is just a natural. Yeah, I love talking to you about this stuff. Obviously, I do it all day long. But I'm I'm just also really excited to be able to continue on my own journey with being a healer and having the options to do what I just love, that people will have options, you know, like if you want to just do, if you don't want to necessarily do energizing exercises, no one's like going to make you. But for myself personally, it changed everything. I wasn't burned out. I would get kind of anxious, or I didn't really have like, I don't know, there was just something missing where it felt like I was like, even though I have these like healing capabilities, why am I still anxious? Why am I not benefiting from them? What the heck? And it was really like my own energy, and I just found it to be this added aspect to it, which really improved everything. But yeah, you've got people who are like, nah, I do my own thing. Whatever, like everyone's going to have their own style. So I'm just excited though, that there is this knowledge out there and that we're talking about this, that Shun Dao is available for people. Oh yeah. Plug Shun Dao. Like let's talk about the classes a little bit, and then we can,
wrap it up. Okay. So the class, I just wanted to quickly say that the thing with like in like Tahiti, their Hat Rei Ho, their Qigong is simply hands together. gassio. You put your hands together and you start off at your belly and you breathe into your belly for so many breaths. Then you put them up to heart level and you breathe for so many breaths. And then the more advanced version, you put it up to near the top of your head. And that's it. That's their Qigong.
That's very approachable. That's very approachable. Anyone, that sounds great.
You know, it doesn't have to be you're standing on one leg waving your hands about. I can teach you that if you want me to, but it doesn't have to be that that hard. And there are on my YouTube channel the Willow Tree Qigong Twist of Waist been seen by over 10,000 people, and it's a very simple exercise. In fact, kids do it almost naturally. They're just turning their waist from side to side and letting their arms flop. I don't want to go to school. I don't want to eat sprouts. And that, that's the whole point. It's but Qigong tends to be, or Daoist arts tend to be childlike. They tend to be simple. They tend to be easy. They're meant to be fun. But anyway, so the Shundao school, the whole point of the school, there's sort of different layers, there's different sections to join. We have Chi time, where you get 2 classes a week, and that is basic warm-ups. But warm-ups in Qigong are more than just warm-ups. They actually take away those general aches and pains. The ones where you've said to your doctor, "Oh, I'll wake up in the morning and I've got achy back, or my elbow hurts," and he'll go, "Oh, it's just old age." Is that in the East, that's nonsense. Is that there are very simple exercises that just improve the circulation enough to take away that edge. And then the next class, Chi Time 2, very simple names. Confuses people sometimes, but very simple names. Chi Time 2 is a little bit more complicated, called Bar Duan Jin, which means 8-piece brocade, or 8 wonderful exercises. And you basically do these 8 exercises 8 times each. And now these exercises, I've had people with 10, 20, 30 years of chronic pain, and within a few months, their pain's been cleared up, or a lot of it's been cleared up. I've had people who suffered years of stress, anxiety, fibromyalgia, ME, MS, and just doing just that Chi time, just those 2 classes a week. So one is about 40 minutes long, the other one is about an hour long. One's on a Thursday, one's on a Sunday, but they're all recorded, so they are live. You can come to them live, but if you can't make the times they're on, they're all recorded too. So that's like Chi time too, and that's just $18 a month. It's a really basic package, but the whole idea, it gives you exercises to start off with, and then you have the cup of Chi, and the cup of Chi is sort of like big boy school, big person school, big boy, big girl, big whoever you are school. And the whole idea is that with that one, you're actually learning. If you're actually a healer or an energy worker, you actually learn Qigongs for the meridians, the chakras, the aura, the Merkaba, the Torah, the Torah or Torridial field, the Dantians, and so much more. And there's lots of different exercises. It's been like being in a sweetie shop. You get lots of different exercises.
I love everything.
And but also if you eventually want to be a Sifu, that's the one, so you get the Chi time as well. So you actually have 4 lessons a week that you can go to. If you get hooked on Qigong and you want to go mad on Qigong, you get 4 lessons a week, and they're all recorded. So you get to watch them over and over again as well. And there's set exercises as well. And the whole idea is with that one, it's an ongoing. I love doing ongoing stuff. It's not a course as such. It's an ongoing course. You can stay as long as you want or short as you want. That's how I designed it.
And so if there are people who want to be they just want to be like a Reiki practitioner in the Western way, they can just contact you directly, right? For anything like that.
Yeah. The Reiki side. I have some set courses on that. I do teach it the traditional way as well, which is like a weekly one. Yeah. And I've known people who've just done a couple of months on the weekly one, but they've advanced greatly because they're getting extra techniques, and that's the whole point. They get these extra exercises, and it's just the Daoist way is stay as long as you like. Come and stay, come and have time, and when it's time for you to go, it's no problem, there's no issue. And that's my viewpoint, is like I want people to stay because they want to stay, rather than be forced to, or feel like they'll be banished if they try to leave. But no, it's the whole idea is this information, there's always more to. I've been learning it for almost 40 years. It'll be 40 years next year, actually. And there's still lots more I want to do. There's still lots more I could learn. And that's the whole point. The more you know, the more you grow, the more you flow. But hey, what do I know?
What do I know? That's great. Well, cool. So basically the Shundao School is under your Patreon, right? So it's patreon.com/Sifu Boggie. And then for moi, if you don't mind me plugging my own stuff, I'm at Awaken Atlas on Instagram and TikTok. And then I have my website. I guess people aren't really plugging their websites as much anymore, but that's just awakenatlas.com. Yeah, and I'm also in Shundao, obviously, and I'm working on my Sifu levels so that I can, get you to retire, and I'll just do all of it for you. So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not retiring to at least I'm about 180 at least. So I've got a long way to go. Yeah. So, but and if you also, like I say, I'm on Sifu Boggie or Sifu Boggie on YouTube, Sifu Boggie or Sifu.Boggie on Instagram, Sifu Boggie on LinkedIn, and on Facebook. If you're on Facebook, I'm under the Way of Conscious Mindfulness, which is the shows. So part of it's the shows, but we're also doing, this podcast where it's me talking about the Dao as well. So I think that's it. I think we should wrap it up.
We did a good job.
Yeah, good. Virtual high five.
High five.
So, guys, we hope you enjoyed it, and I will be back next week, and the wonderful Allis Well will definitely be back again very soon. So it's goodbye from me.
Bye. And me.
And Allis Well as well. So it's goodbye until next time. Love, Chi, and Shen. It's Sifu Boggie and Allis Wells.
Ouch.
Thank you.